Bases dropped on a somewhat gloomy Wednesday, July 10th, a little overcast at least, and there is, of course, a chance of rain because there's a match in Kennesaw today, and I'm a little triggered by the rain in the forecast after what happened with the twos last Friday. Hopefully, we don't get anything like that for the quarterfinals of the U.S. Open Cup. Tonight, Atlanta United hosting St. Louis FC of the USL Championship. We will have your pregame and postgame coverage live from Fifth Third Bank Stadium this evening. Pregame will start right before 6 o'clock. Postgame will start right after the match. It's going to be a fun one across the country and in Canada as well because it is a Wednesday Cup day as you look across the landscape. And let's start north of the border as we preview the Cup matches today, John. Vancouver and Cavalry FC. It's a little more complicated in Canada these days for the Canadian Championship. It's not 3 teams playing for a cup. It's not now 4 teams playing for a cup. You have a whole Canadian Premier League that factors into it. And Cavalry FC from Calgary advanced to this round. It's the 3rd qualifying round, and it'll be a home and away with the Whitecaps. The Cavalry FC, they've got some former Whitecaps personnel involved with the club, so there's a little bit of a rivalry going on here.
Some spiciness, and we have juice box purveyors with numbers in both the Canada Championships and Open Cup. It took me a little while to dig it up, but we do have it. Full-time results, Whitecaps at -188, Cavalry FC at +375. If you can get the draw option with Cavalry FC, it's at +125.
Okay. This one, Cavalry, if you're wondering, who is Cavalry FC from Calgary? They finished 8-2 in the first half of the Canadian Premier League season. They scored 16 goals. That's 2 a game. They gave up 7. They had a little bit of a slip-up at the end. They lost 2 of their last 3 in the season, but they did win the spring title, and they have started the fall season well with a 3-2 win. So they will be pushing forward. One rule about the Canadian Championship, you've got to start at least 4 Canadians. That is one rule to keep in mind. That can be a little tricky for some teams. Vancouver has a much better team here. The question will be, how much rotation do you see out of Marc Dos Santos and the Whitecaps? You can probably get away with some, but there are limits to that, as we've seen many, many times. So how aggressively does Vancouver take this? That's going to be the biggest question going into it.
Yeah, and it's going to be, I think, a question across the board, especially also with the other matchup that involves an MLS side, which we'll be getting into in a minute. And the intrigue, the palace intrigue of all of this, whether we're talking the Canadian Championships or the U.S. Open Cup, is that particular question: is what kind of rosters are we looking at? What's rotation looking at because of compressed schedules? And so it's not just something exclusive to to the U.S. Open Cup, Canada Championships as well.
Yeah, the Canadian version's a little different because it's home and away, so it's not just one match. Keep that in mind. Tonight, all of the higher seeded teams in terms of what league they play in are on the road. So Vancouver's headed to Calgary for this one. Montreal is visiting York 9. Is there a story behind York 9 and why it's York 9?
I'm sure there is, and I'm fairly certain that our friends at Barn Burner, considering that they catch up with Coach Carmine Asako on a weekly basis, is the way it's looking at. And so, of course, I'm spinning very quickly to try to figure out what it is. And strangely enough, they're called Y9 and the 9 Stripes. So that's my first part of this whole story, and I'll probably dig up a little more as we go.
That doesn't help me at all. I want to know why it's 9. Do they play shorthanded? I mean,
Yeah,
Indy
really?
11 at least somewhat makes sense.
True.
Like York,
They're
I mean, I get, okay, you want to call it Y9 and 9 Stripes. Yeah, that's great because you called the team York 9. Why is it York 9?
That's what I'm trying to figure out here.
Okay, they've got to tell their Oh, here we go.
Okay. Got it. Now let me see if your story meshes with mine.
I'm sure
The
it
main
does. Go
feature of
ahead.
the crest design is 9 beams at the top of the crest, one for each municipality in York Region,
Yes.
a nod to the region's motto, Ontario's Rising Star.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know is why it was a 9 because it doesn't really make sense if you don't know the story. But there is a story behind
Maybe
it.
they're just
and
playing shorthanded.
No, they're not playing shorthand. They play in Toronto, if you are not familiar with Canadian geography. And they will be playing Montreal tonight, and they're hosting Montreal in the first leg. It's weird for Montreal because they're going to Toronto, but they're not going to play Toronto FC. So it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, what? Huh? They're playing on the campus of York University. It is a small stadium, a small field as well. Montreal will be a little bit used to that with their visits to Yankee Stadium, but it's going to be a different type of challenge for Montreal in this one. What are the Juicebox purveyors saying?
Juicebox purveyors have Montreal at minus 334.
Wow.
Draw option with Montreal's minus 1400. The York 9 FC or draw option is at plus 225.
Okay, that's a weird set of numbers.
Yes.
Jimmy Brennan is York 9's manager, and they 4-4-6 thus far, including Canadian Championship matches. So not great in the Canadian Championship, but they have advanced to this round. Montreal should be able to take care of business, but this is the tricky first leg on the road, and we'll see how they do. The other game in Canadian Championship, the other team that is in a U.S. league, Ottawa Fury, they are on the road to face Wanderers. Do we know anything about
From
Wanderers?
Halifax. Yep, Halifax Wanderers, HFX.
Okay.
And it is Juicebox purveyors have Ottawa at a minus 125, Halifax full-time result to win plus 260. Another interesting element, Halifax Wanderers FC or draw is at minus 120.
Interesting. So in Canada, if you haven't been keeping up, they have finished the spring season, which was 10 games. And Cavalry was your winners at 8-2. Forge FC was next. The Wanderers were 3-5-2. That was good to have them in a gaggle in fourth place, but they had, I don't know why they were ahead of other teams. Oh, goal differential and goals and wins. Those were the tie breaks. That's why they're ahead of York 9. There's 7 teams in the Canadian Premier League. It's going to grow, but it's good for this competition because we've talked about it before. The Canadian Championship trophy didn't quite feel the same as the Open Cup because of the number of teams that were involved. So now it's a little more of a test, and we'll see how you watch MLS teams slip up in the Open Cup. We will see how the Canadian teams deal with playing Canadian Premier League teams that don't have the same type of talent, but are going to be incredibly motivated to show that they're quality and can pull an upset here. And they get the first leg at home to try to set that table. So keep an eye on what's going on up north. But let's get into the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup with 4 matches today. Where do you want to start, John?
The ones not involving the local, so we hit the local last?
Well, yes. I think that was kind of understood. So pick one.
Let's go with Orlando City and NYCFC.
All right. Orlando hosting New York City FC. NYCFC will be rotating their squad. How much, and how much are they able to, is the biggest question, because they did not have a full bench on Sunday against Portland. Dome Tarrant said after that match, "We are tired. It is normal after 3 or 4 games in 10 days. After this game, some players need to rest." Maxi Morales, Anton Tinnerholm were mentioned by name about players who needed a day off. And he said, we will try to win against Orlando with different players. You've got Justin Hack, you've got Daniel Bedoya, you've got Juan Pablo Torres. Those are all possibilities. Gary Mackay-Stevenson is eligible. He is brand new to the team. He could get his first NYCFC action. Jesus Medina came off the bench as well. So, look, you had 16 guys on Sunday. You add Mackay-Stevenson into it, that's 17. You're still going to have to play some tired players.
Juicebox purveyors think that this one may be going a while. Full-time result, Orlando City plus 115, NYCFC plus 210, the draw at plus 250, double chance, draw option with Orlando City minus 275, draw option with NYCFC minus 150. To qualify, Orlando City minus 150, NYCFC plus 110.
Yeah, Orlando's at home. They should be the favorite here. And judging from what NYC's had to deal with lately in terms of their bench, yeah, Orlando should be the favorite. I don't think that's a surprise. This is tricky for Orlando, trickier than they thought it would be. They ended up having to play Sunday afternoon rather than Saturday night, which they didn't play as late as NYC, but they thought they were going to have more time. And then they didn't get home until Monday afternoon. So, I'm reading from the mainland, who is yelling about league incompetence, which I really don't understand because you can't play in a lightning storm. But anyway, and they did play before NYC did, so I don't know. Look, anyway, Orlando's got to take care of business here. If you're going to be a team that is pushing for playoff spots, if you're going to be a team that is trying to do something, do something for the first time, getting to an Open Cup semifinal would be a good step. They have the home match here. They have a team that is coming in saying, we are tired. Orlando has to take advantage in this match. They have to win this. If they don't, you worry about the rest of their season going into a tailspin.
And this is just one of those opportunities where you sit there and it's like, all right, it's right here in front of you. Take care of business. And how do you respond? It is laid out. It could not be laid out any more plainly for you. Shorthanded team, allegedly. Wondering what the roster is going to look like. Wondering what the rotation is going to look like. This is the chance for Orlando City to pounce, to sit there and wave a flag and plant that flag and sit there and go, okay, we can do this kind of stuff to move forward to the next round.
Yeah, there's nothing to respond to. They've got to come out and win this game. Like, it's not even waiting. It's coming out on the front foot, something that they need to do more of. Orlando should be able to take care of this because of the situations that both teams are coming in with, but we will learn a little bit more about Orlando and who they are after this. They say it's different this year. It should be different this year. It shouldn't be acceptable that they have not made the playoffs yet in their history. This is an important match for them, and we'll see how they handle the pressure. Minnesota, who has not made the playoffs yet either, but they have 2 years that they started after Orlando City. They are in an Open Cup quarterfinal, and they are hosting the other USL Championship team left in the competition, New Mexico United. This is a big deal to Minnesota. It's a huge deal to New Mexico United, obviously, but it's a big deal to Minnesota as well. This could be a really fun match to check in on.
Can we talk about the investment that New Mexico United has made across the board in this for a second before we get into Juicebox purveyors? When your team says, tell you what, we're going to get a charter and we'll fly anybody who's interested up to this match. And how long did it take for that charter to fill up? Like 3.5 seconds, figuratively. I mean, it was an instantaneous response by the fan base of New Mexico United. And props to the ownership group to sit there and say, tell you what, we know how big a deal this is, and this just adds to what they've been able to build on in this first season in New Mexico. And how everyone goes to the lab, and they're averaging, 13,000 people a night, and they've got a tremendous offense. And it's great to see guys like Devin Sandoval go home and do well, and Santi Moar and Kevon Frater. And those are the three names, I guess, that would, for the casual fan to sit there, you look and you go in there and chase after those guys. But I think that it's another instance of tipping your hat to New Mexico United as to what they're doing to help build soccer in the southwestern United States.
Well, they won't have Kevon Frater, who is going to miss out due to yellow card suspension. That's going to hurt them. They do have other firepower. Santi Moar is a player you will be keeping an eye on. They got through in penalties in the fourth round, so they have a little bit of experience with that. I think the biggest thing about it is they're not going to come in and sit back like you see a lot of lower division teams on the road. They're not going to be defensive. They're not going to sit and counter and try to take it to extra time and penalties. They're going to come out and play and see where that takes them. So that suits Minnesota as well, because I think that's their nature at this point. So you're going to have two teams that are going to be out trying to play and trying to win this game rather than not lose it. Could be a really, really fun match. It's an 8 o'clock Eastern time kick, and it's on ESPN Plus, like all the rest of the U.S. Open Cup matches. Final game of the night is LAFC hosting Portland. These teams don't like each other. These teams have gotten very physical with one another. They did just a few weeks ago at Providence Park, where LAFC went into Portland and won. Last year, LAFC advanced in the Open Cup in the quarterfinals. I think the Timbers are going to come in loaded for bear tonight.
And before we get into those juice boxes, juice box purveyors, Minnesota United minus 275 and New Mexico United plus 650. So LAFC, full-time result to win in 90 minutes, minus 350, Portland plus 800.
Whoa.
Uh-huh. But you might enjoy that one.
Plus 800 in regulation time. A regulation time win for Portland is plus 800.
According to our friends at Bet365, correct.
That's wild.
To qualify, yeah. I figured you might, if you had some spare juice boxes, that might be one that you would throw those juice boxes toward.
Yeah, that might be the spares juice box pick of the day.
To qualify, minus 900 for LAFC, Portland at plus 550. Method of victory, winning in extra time, LAFC plus 1,000, Portland plus 3,300.
Craziness. That's intriguing. I'm surprised. Anyway, we will see how this goes. I think it'll be a fun one. I think all of the matches tonight have intriguing elements across the board. Atlanta, Emerson Hyndman getting his first run out for the Five Stripes, dealing with a team in St. Louis that I think will come in and sit and defend, and we'll get into that as we go this morning. Orlando has a point to prove, and it does kind of feel like a test for them that they need to pass. If they want to move on to be a playoff contender, they have to get through this. And no, the Open Cup's not the same, but this is one that they are in position to take advantage of. They've got Nani and Juan, who did not play on Sunday. Robin Janssen and Sasha Kleshin were suspended on Sunday. They're all fresh. There's no excuses for Orlando to not win this game. So they should move on. Minnesota has everything for them to move on to the semifinals, although New Mexico is going to test them. Minnesota should be able to take care of business. And LAFC Portland will be a heavyweight fight.
And that's why how many times a week do we sit there and tell people that if they're not subscribers to ESPN Plus that they should be by now?
Yeah, there's just no excuse at this point.
Plenty of times. 2 in this household, 1 per device.
That still makes no
or
sense.
One per person. Well, sometimes
Technology.
you can't log in on certain devices, and it's me and technology.
That's all it is. You're just spending an extra $5 because you and technology have a fight on a regular basis.
You got that correct. That's not going to change either.
It makes no sense whatsoever, but okay. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, start talking Atlanta and St. Louis, and we will have an on-site, not from the match, but from another site, correspondent Jarrett Smith joining us here in just a minute. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, July 10th edition. Getting ready for the Open Cup tonight. Atlanta hosting St. Louis at Fifth Third Bank Stadium on the campus of Kennesaw State University. 7:30 kick time, and should be a good crowd. Should be an interesting game because Atlanta does have a crowded schedule coming up. They won't go, I think, completely 100% first choice. We know Emerson Hyndman will be making his debut tonight. We know a few players who have been out will continue to be out. Florentine Pogba will be out for this one. Not really a surprise after coming off in the first half on Sunday. But I don't think Atlanta comes in not taking this match seriously either. I think you build a deep squad for games like this, and you're going to rely on that depth tonight. You are going to look to some different faces to lead you, and one would be Emerson Hyndman, John.
Yep, yeah, and this is, for me, this is the part that I'm actually looking forward to the most, the anticipation of Hyndman coming in, the anticipation of what he can bring to the roster, and bringing him out in an Open Cup situation where there's been training. Okay, here's an Open Cup situation for you. You come out in the lineup. What are you bringing to the table? Where's your learning curve right now? For me, that's the number one thing I'm looking at as the team wants to get to a semifinal. For me, it is what Hyndman has been doing in practice and what it can bring to the table here tonight. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Interested to see that. Interested to see Dion Pereira as well. You would expect that he'll be a big part of it. Let's see if our Scottish correspondent, Jarrett Smith, who's not in Scotland, he's just at the Atlanta Zoo, if he can chime in with any thoughts on Emerson Hyndman.
You know, I give you all the best sound, like whether it's the sound of apparently cats being tortured, or
that's what it sounded like,
or in this case, probably wild animals. I give the best background ambiance
something
of any show or HDAD in this city concerning any sporting team. I dare anyone to tell me otherwise.
I don't know if that's an accomplishment, though.
It's all I have. It's not a lot, but it's what I've got.
Okay.
He's our Marlon Perkins.
It's not a lot to go on here, but it's something. As far as tonight goes, bless you. I look forward to seeing what Hyman gives you. Not sure really what to expect from him just on the first.
This is about typical for a Jarrett Smith appearance.
It's going to be kind of.
Okay, we're gonna get rid of the robot because it's gone. I don't know who has more fights with technology, John or Jarrett. It seems like it's a running tag team battle, and neither one can win.
I would say me by default.
I don't know. Jarrett's last few appearances have set a new bar for something. What are you thinking lineup wise tonight? How adventurous is Frank de Boer?
Define adventurous.
I mean, how not first choice?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think that you're looking at the Seattle match, and I know that we've had this discussion before, as if you were ranking the matches that are coming up in the recent calendar, that Seattle, in the grand scheme of things, may be, and this is, I'm putting this in quotes, it's the least impactful of the ones that you're going to be playing. So I would say Joseph starts, you see Hyndman, you probably see Lorenowitz in the middle, Nagby, and I would say that a lot of the big guns will be in there. But if you end up with a lead, say at 60, that is quote unquote comfortable, if it's a couple of goals, then you may start seeing substitutions. But I would say it's as close to first choice as you can get, because you don't have Barco, you don't have Flo Pogba. It's probably some combination of Ambrose and Shea on the left. So I'm thinking it's as close to the 13 or 14 guys that we see on a regular basis. Injuries withstanding, I think it's going to be pretty close.
All right, this might turn into a rusty kind of appearance, but let's try Jarrett again. Are you still a robot, Jarrett?
There's a solid chance, yes.
No, okay, you sound good now. Let's see if you can get some.
Don't move from that spot.
I'm not. I'm terrified now. So what was your question?
Thoughts on tonight? I'll make it vague for you.
Okay, beautiful. A lot of people probably haven't seen what St. Louis brings to the table. This could get really physical, and you just played a physical game with Red Bulls. It's going to be a team in St. Louis that's going to be defensive, and Atlanta's going to be patient, but you've got the guys to break down that defense, I think, with, if it is a Dion Pereira, if he's good to go, if it is an Andrew Carlton who gets a chance to prove what he can do. It's another situation where you can make this happen.
I'm intrigued about Carlton. That's the one that I think needs to play tonight for multiple reasons. Needs to play for his own reasons.
He needs to show out.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's definitely that, but I think you're going to need him tonight, because when you look at the group, Joseph or Vasquez up top, I think, is really dependent on how Joseph is feeling after his first game back. Okay, that's a pretty easy one. It's one or the other. You're playing Hyndman. We know that. What the rest of the group looks like, I would say Dion Pereira, if he's healthy and ready to go, he's playing. You'd love to give Julian Gressel the day off, because it seems like every game Julian plays lately, he gets kicked 5 minutes in.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see him get the night off. I'm figuring you're going to play Lorenowitz as much as you can. He's not going to play Sunday anyway.
Yes,
so give me what you can. Yeah, give me what you can, Jeff Lorenowitz. I know Lorenowitz is not a spring chicken anymore, but give me what you can. Other than that, I mean, LGP, you already have, he didn't play last Sunday, so he's going to be there. You figure Miles is going to be there. It's that Tuesday game against St. Louis was really weird. earlier this season. A nice little dive that St. Louis used to earn their first goal, and it got physical. And I could see it being a kind of game again where the St. Louis, if they don't have control of the game, where they could try and make it a very physical game and take the flow out of the game, kind of like Red Bulls did, where if you break in the midfield, we're not gonna let the game flow. We're gonna try and make this as choppy and as unrhythmic as possible.
One player from St. Louis to keep an eye on, the Cup.us named him the player of the round in the last round, Sam Fink, their captain, center back. He scored the game-winning goal 3 minutes into stoppage time to knock Cincinnati out. He's a handful on set pieces, and he's a local guy. You know, if you're going to have anybody who understands what this game means to St. Louis, it's Sam Fink. He played at the Scott Gallagher Youth Club. He's from Edwardsville. He went on to play at Wake Forest, and he came back home to sign for St. Louis FC and has been there from day one. He's not going to be an easy player to deal with, especially on set pieces, and that's where I worry the most tonight.
Oh, for sure. And this is the thing as well, is any team that's not an MLS team that makes it this far, they're going to have guys to worry about. That's how they made it this far. They defend well. They take advantage of their chances. We saw them do that against Cincinnati, where they defended well and they used a very, very late set-piece goal. That, I think, is kind of your nightmare scenario if you're Atlanta, where you're just unable to break them down. You're unable to find a rhythm in the game, unable to get things going, and then they hit you. They earn a set piece, and then they hit you on that set piece. Because, you know, we've talked about this before. Talked about this with Charleston, honestly, when they played that closed-door match. Worst thing you can do is what they did against Charleston, which is give up the early goal. You give St. Louis an early goal, you're going to shut it down. Or going to try to anyway.
I think they're going to shut it down to start, and that's what's going to be tricky about them. But you look back at that Cincinnati game, and no, Cincinnati is not at the same kind of level as Atlanta United should be right now. But Cincinnati had 63% of the possession. They only created 2 shots on goal. St. Louis with 37% of the possession, 16 shots, 6 on target on the day. They don't need a lot of the ball to be dangerous. And the back line, I think, is their strength, especially in the middle with Fink and Kavita. But they have other players in different parts of the field that can cause you problems. And, John, a couple that we know pretty well from USL Championship, Hilton and Cicerone.
Yeah, Lewis Hilton, he's more than happy to get into the middle of everything. Young Harris product for those that remember him a couple of years back. And Russell Cicerone, you and I have seen him in USL the last 2 seasons. And you look at those guys, and if it's Greg and Fink and Cicerone and Hilton, that's that focus that if you're not really reading the St. Louis Post-Dispatch or anything like that, those are the guys for me. And you mentioned Fink on set pieces. St. Louis, Anthony Pulis told the local paper that they're only coming in with 13 healthy bodies. So I want to see what the rest of it looks like, and I want to see how deep they go. Is this an NYCFC thing where you only come in with 3 extra guys and come in with 16? And they've got a match in USL Championship this weekend, which is really important, against Charlotte. Ever since they've made this Open Cup run, they started out really well. I mean, Jason, when they came to Fifth Third, we saw them. And ever since they've gone into Open Cup after starting 5-1-2, 0-3-4 since. So there's a lot of things at play here for St. Louis FC. But, yeah, the guys that you mentioned are definitely a part of the focus tonight with Anthony Pulis coming to town.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to the beginning of April, that's when they came into Kennesaw and beat Atlanta United 2-0. They lost to Birmingham. They drew with Pittsburgh. They beat Swope Park, who's had a rough season. They drew with Charleston. They had to go to penalties to get past the Des Moines Menace in the second round of the Open Cup. They drew with Louisville. They beat Forward Madison 3-1. They lost to Hartford. That was one of Hartford's first wins. They beat Chicago 2-1. They lost to Bethlehem in league play. They beat Cincinnati 1-0. They drew with North Carolina. They lost to Swope Park, and they drew with Loudoun. They've been getting up for the big games, though. And I think that's what you have to keep in mind when it comes to this team. They're struggling in league play right now, and that happens a lot with lower division teams that make these runs in the Open Cup. But you can't ignore a 3-1 win over Forward Madison, a 2-1 win over Chicago where they had a 2-0 lead and Chicago pulled one back, and a 1-0 late win over Cincinnati. They can play the big boys. Now, the question is going to be how healthy they are and how they handle it. They had to fight back to get a 2-2 draw against Loudoun United at home over the weekend on Saturday. Jarrett, what's the most important things for you from the Atlanta side of things tonight?
Don't give it that early goal. Like you said, if they shut it down early, even if they shut it down from the start, don't give it that early goal and make it easy for them. It's a team that has a worrying issue sometimes this season. Not every game, but sometimes they don't turn the engine over at kickoff. It takes them a little bit of time to get the engine warm. This is very much not the game for that. I worry about that, and I worry about if you end up with a game like what Kevin Stott officiated Sunday, where where it gets really physical, and it's allowed to be physical, and it's allowed to not have any rhythm, with no repercussion, no persistent infringement, that sort of thing. It plays against what Atlanta wants to do. That's something I would worry about with this game.
Yeah, and there's probably a fairly decent chance of that happening because you're getting referees who generally in the Open Cup are on the way up, and these are some of their first tastes of the next level. The referee tonight is Rosendo Mendoza, and one member of the crew is familiar at this level. The fourth official, Sergei Demyanchuk, has done plenty of USL Championship matches, knows St. Louis really well, I would assume. But I think we've seen it pretty consistently at this stage where you're getting referees that do call the game a little differently, and you get a lot of complaints about it. I can absolutely see this one being physical. I can definitely see St. Louis having a lot of leeway to play a physical match tonight. One thing about Mendoza, when you look back at his numbers, he had Colorado Springs and Orange County in USL Championship play on July 4th. He gave a red card there. He had San Antonio and El Paso in USL Championship on June 26th. He gave 6 yellows and a red card. He had NWSL, Portland, and Utah, two yellows. He had Open Cup with New England getting past Red Bulls. He had yellows, and he had a red card in that one. He was also the fourth official for Atlanta and Montreal recently, so he knows Atlanta, at least in terms of how they play. It's probably as good of an assignment as you can get in the Open Cup, but yeah, it's something to keep an eye on. Games are generally called a little differently in the U.S. Open Cup, and you don't have VAR involved either.
And all of these things are going to play into it. I know that, Jason, once again, we've seen Sergei consistently over the last couple of years and have his local presence.
That's not.
Oh, I know.
Keep
I know he's the
fourth. He's had a couple games that have been interesting at the center referee level, but he is just your fourth official tonight.
Right.
Mendoza's also worked as a VAR a lot in Major League Soccer.
But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of professional fouling from St. Louis at points to try to.
I'm seeing a lot of fouling from St. Louis.
Okay, all right. So yeah, just to slow the game down, to keep it in a pace that doesn't get out of their own control. They want to keep it at 33 1/3. They don't want to get it up to 78 where Atlanta United wants it.
Yeah, they're gonna be physical. They're gonna try to control the game in that way as best as they can, because that's the advantage they have. They are a bigger team. They are a team that can play that kind of style. They're gonna be pretty direct. That's their strengths. They don't really have a true playmaker per se. It's much more of a play direct, play to the forwards, let them knock it down, and advance that way. So let's take a break real quick. We'll come back, get into Twitter, get into some of the questions that you guys out there listening have about tonight, have about Open Cup, and just general Wall Pass Wednesday questions right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, July 10th. The U.S. women's national team are on floats heading down the streets of New York City right now. There was champagne served beforehand. Thank you, Ashlyn Harris, for all of the amazing Instagram stories. Your work is to be
There's
commended.
nothing good about being a champagne drunk either. Good God.
Well, it's been that way since the game ended on Sunday. So,
Ashlyn Harris is a gift to this country.
Yes. I mean, we don't have knighthoods, but whatever the equivalent would be, Ashlyn Harris 100%
honorary ambassador.
Whatever she wants at this point, because her Instagram has been unbelievable. It's been fun keeping up with everything going on, and it's very cool to see the crowds as the parade is really just getting started in New York. We'll talk about the U.S. women and NWSL and everything going on. If you guys have questions, we'll talk about it as we go, because there's going to be some interesting, I think, conversations around the league coming up. You're already starting to hear different cities jockeying for expansion spots. You're seeing coverage of things. The North Carolina Courage, their players will be not in Cary for a little while, actually, the way the schedule's worked out. The Victory Tour, the first game has been announced in August at the Rose Bowl against Ireland. There's 4 more dates that are on FIFA dates that won't conflict with NWSL. So it's going to be interesting to watch everything get back into a normal swing with the clubs. But let's get into Twitter now. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday, so what are the peeps asking, John?
Joel at Mr. Runner 76, considering we were just discussing the Canyon of Heroes, we didn't see a bump in girls soccer programs after the 2015 win. So how do we, parenthesis, youth clubs, close parenthesis, use this women's national team excitement to grow the women's game in rec soccer? Hashtag Wall Pass Wednesday.
That's not what's been reported. What's been reported is that there is generally a bump after a Women's World Cup. Georgia Soccer said that it's usually a 10% bump after a Women's World Cup. So I'm not sure where that comes from. I don't think it would be all elite. I think it would mostly be recreational. This is, a little bit of what I come back to on the pro side as well. right now there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of attention. That's great. Right now there's also a lot of people basically telling folks that you're obligated to go watch the NWSL. You're obligated to go do this. You're obligated to go do that. You're obligated to sign your girls up to play. What I want to see more of are youth clubs going out and going to people and saying, hey, you're excited about the Women's World Cup. You're excited about Tobin Heath and Samantha Mewis and Julie Ertz. Cool. Come play soccer here, and we will coach you, and so you can learn how they play. Come play with us. If you're an NWSL team, it is, hey, you're excited? There were these viewing parties? That's awesome. Now come watch us. Here's a deal on a ticket. Here's how you can bring your friends. Here's a free T-shirt. Here's a free hat, whatever. I'm seeing a lot of people telling you should be obligated to go and you should go do this because it's the right thing. It is the right thing. But there's not enough coming from the actual entities that would be benefiting from it. I'm seeing a lot of people telling you to go support NWSL except for the clubs themselves doing it. And you look at what some of the clubs did during the World Cup. Some of the marketing of it and some of the marketing of their clubs during the World Cup was minimal at best. And that's not good enough. It's not going to survive if it is treated like a charity that you're told you should go support. Those types of charities don't survive. You can't make it in that type of attitude anymore. It doesn't work. You have to go out and be one-on-one with people. These clubs, and that's, if it's a youth club, if it's a professional team, they have to go out and meet people. And they have to go out and make it not to where you feel obligated to come out, but where you want to come out, where you want to go be a part of it. It's a difference, and it's something we need more of that to happen. It's not good enough now for the NWSL teams and the league as a whole to sit back and wait for people to come. That's not going to fly. And it's the same at the recreational level. If you are a local YMCA, if you're a local youth club, and you want to grow the rec side of your girls' participation, for me, like, one, you should have already been planning for it because you should have been doing things to capitalize on this during the tournament. You should have had free camps. You should have had free pickup nights. Now you better be doing those things. You should have a Friday night or a Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon free pickup, drop in and play. And you're going to have coaches out there to organize it, maybe give a little bit of instruction, give people a taste of it, make it a girls-specific pickup day. And then, hey, did you have fun? You can come play. You can be a part of this team. You can join the club. That type of stuff has to happen. And that's not what I'm seeing enough of. There's a lot of sitting back and waiting for people to show up. It's not going to work that way.
Jarrett, what do you think? You toss to him.
The Flamingos.
But no, yeah, I think that.
Yeah, well,
there we go.
The Flamingos
are still getting him.
The best Flamingos.
Something like that.
We went full Mingo this morning.
Yeah, they're out of the tournament, so it doesn't really matter.
They're still the winners of
something like that.
Yeah, no, I think that these days, I think when you force someone to do something, the preconceived initial thought is, well, what if I don't want to? And if you go ahead and let things go in the first time, it's like, okay, you've got to go do something. Then you go do it, and it turns in, for whatever reason, if it's a negative experience, and I'm not just talking about soccer, it's about something that someone forces you, you have to go do this, you're obligated to do this, and it turns into a negative, you're not going to go back, or it's going to take a heck of a lot for you to go back that second time. And it goes back to the discussion that we've had about proactive versus reactive. And I would have loved to have seen some, like what you were saying, Jason, some proactive ideas either in concert with the time of the World Cup or leading into it to garner and galvanize interest, instead of sitting there and saying, well, you've got to go do this. Because people these days with disposable income, whether it's going to a match or investing in a camp or going to do something, that people are going to be looking after their own disposable income more than they have in the past. And so if you're turned off by an obligation, you're not going to go back, and all that does is create a larger negative. And then you tell somebody about it and the word spreads, and it turns into a larger negative, regardless of what the perception is of that second, third, or fourth person that you tell that you had a negative experience for.
Yeah, I don't even look at it. I mean, obviously people, are worried about disposable income. That's a definite, but it's my experience on the nonprofit side. It's not good enough anymore to guilt people into making a donation. And this shouldn't be treated like a donation anyway. This is a business. And does it need investment to fully, I think, mature and be a big business? Yes, it does. And investment means you're going to put more money in than you're going to get in the early going. I think that is something that is necessary. But ultimately, it has to survive as a business. And it can. You see the audience. Like, that's what frustrates me about it at this point, because the audience is there for high-level women's soccer. The players are personalities. They grab your attention. You want to then watch them play at the club level. You want to watch them play against one another at the club level. You want to see these things happen. It has to be treated like that, and not treated like, yes, you're a soccer fan, you have to come out and support this. Why? Because you have to, because it's the right thing. Obviously. But that doesn't create a lasting fan. That gets people to come out one time. That gets people to, from a charity perspective, from the other way around, that gets people to make a donation one time, and then they drop you from the mailing list. They don't want to hear from you. That's not what women's soccer should be. Women's soccer should be, this is an outstanding product. Just like the men are. Just like going to see Atlanta United is a fun time out. There are differences about going to see an NWSL game. It might be in a smaller venue. You might be able to get up close. You might be able to meet players afterwards. You might be able to get more autographs for your kids. There's so many different things that are different that you can celebrate. And you can make a selling point. And that's what I want to see these things go from being treated like a charity to being treated like a business, because it is a business now. It feels like Major League Soccer 15 years ago, where you are past the point of, is the league going to survive? The league's going to survive. Now how does the league grow? And how do you get to a point where it is taken seriously? World Cups were like that on the men's side, where it's like, okay, cool, everybody's excited about the World Cup, then they go away. The women have to now take that jump to where MLS is, where day in and day out it's a big deal. And I think they can. But it's going to take the clubs, it's going to take the league doing it the right way, and it is going to take some people jumping on board and pushing, for sure. But that can't be the only pitch that's out there. It's got to be more than that. So I really hope this is the tipping point that it should be. I think it will be in a lot of countries, and I hope that it's the tipping point to take it to an even bigger level here.
And I'm looking forward to those next steps. And I look at the past, and I know this seems something that seems to go down every 4 years. I look at the past, and I'm waiting for that next step to happen. 2015 didn't happen. Now let's make 2019 happen. Let's do what we need to do.
2015 happened. It was different than 2019, because 2015 NWSL was a couple years in and honestly teetering.
True.
So it's a different situation. It happened, and it helped solidify the NWSL. That's a good thing.
Yes.
99 did launch a women's league. It was just poorly run. And I think it was too much. It was run too much like a charity. and there wasn't a long-term business plan, and it failed. The second league had a lot of issues. It failed. NWSL, I think, is past that point. I think it's going to be okay. But to grow, there are things that need to be done that are different than what it took to get to this point.
I'm looking to see Sky Blue get solidified. And then when you have all of the franchises solidified, then you're getting on that solid ground to build more franchises, to put them in more cities. You look at the vetting of these owners, hope that they're solid, understand the investment, understand the process, understand where everyone wants the NWSL to go, understand their place in that and how important it is for it to be sound when it comes to approach and investment and interaction in the community. And we've had discussions in the past about markets and which markets would do well. And I know there's talk here locally about it too. I want to see those next steps. I want to see sound investment. I want to see expansion in the league. I want to see the players stay, because we know that they're going to be recruited by the leagues overseas and they're going to be compensated well. How does the NWSL combat that aspect of it too? That's another part of it that I'm looking for.
I don't want to see them stay because they feel obligated to. I want to see them make the most money that they can make. They're professional athletes. Just like in Major League Soccer, where the conversation has been, hey, get paid. If you get paid elsewhere, go get paid elsewhere. It should not be any different for the women. There should not be an obligation put on these women to stay and play in Sky Blue instead of going to Europe because you have to help the league grow. Nope. No. You have to get paid. Flat out. You got to get paid. If Real Madrid throws money at you, you go take it. If Chelsea throws money at you, you go take it. That's where it needs to get to, and that's going to push the NWSL to be better at what it does, and that's honestly what it needs. And across the board, it's great. It can be better, and you can't sit back and rest now. Now is not the time to rest. Now is the time to really go push and get things done. Let's take a break. Let's come back. Let's get Mike Conti on the line, talk about the Open Cup tonight, talk about Sunday's craziness, and look ahead to Seattle as well. Be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, July 10th. It's It's a match day, U.S. Open Cup match day, Atlanta and St. Louis at Fifth Third Bank Stadium in Kennesaw. But it's a crowded time for Atlanta United, and we've got to get some help on a crowded show from Mike Conti. What's up, Mike?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
Good.
All right.
Have you recovered from the craziness of Sunday?
Yeah. I still maintain I had a lot of fun with that game. I thought it was wild. I thought it was very entertaining. Exactly what the league needed in that spot with the match following USA and Holland in the Women's World Cup. I know it sucks to give away 2 points at the end like that, but I still think my broad view of that match was, for as much as Red Bulls dominated, I'm not all that upset with a draw. You want to get 3 points when you have it, and those 2 blown points will almost certainly come back to haunt you at some stage of the season later on. But I did like the fight that Atlanta United showed. Quite frankly, it's very, very rare, and it's been rare over the history of this club to come back from a second-half deficit and get any kind of points. So the fact that they did that, I find very encouraging. I also have a feeling we're going to see Red Bulls again. And I thought Bradley Wright Phillips' comments after the match were telling and very nice to hear, where, paraphrasing, he basically said, they bring out the best in us because we respect them so much. So fun match, now looking ahead to, 12 hours in an airplane over the next couple days. But before that, I know we have a big Open Cup match tonight.
Let me break the fourth wall here a second, Mike. When it comes to, say, that last 15 minutes, have you been a part of a broadcast that has been as wall-to-wall and wide open as that was from an announcer standpoint?
Yes, the San Jose match last year, because everything got crazy from about 75 to the end. When was the Wando goal that was taken away by VAR in that match? I feel like it was around the 75th minute.
Around 70 or 75.
Maybe around 70. And then it was just a bombardment by Atlanta United. So you get the Wando goal taken down. Joseph hits the penalty. Then you had that weird play where I'm still not positive if the referee had called advantage on a foul in the box, and everyone but Miguel Almiron stopped playing, and Almiron put it in for the tying goal, and then you got the game winner deep in the stoppage. It felt about as wild and wide open. Quite honestly, I think there have been a few matches like that this year. The match in Salt Lake City kind of comes to mind, where Atlanta United got the equalizer after the 70th minute. Then it became a very wide open game, and you got the Salt Lake goal at the end to win it. The Philadelphia game kind of felt a little bit like that. The second leg against Monterey kind of felt like that. Just as far as like wide open, crazy end-to-end play, I feel like we've had a couple like that this year. But what happened on Sunday, John, was right at the top, right up there with that San Jose match last year, as far as just a lot of crazy, almost unbelievable amounts of action in the final 15 minutes of a match.
I think one of the big questions we're getting this morning, Coach K just asked us on Twitter as well. Prediction for the lineup tonight because of this match in Seattle, because of the match on Sunday against Red Bulls, and you do have to look ahead to a week from tonight against Houston at home. Mm-hmm. How much rotation are you expecting tonight?
Well, let's start with what we know, and that's Heineman's going to play, and I'm assuming that means he's going to start. I think you play Lorenowitz tonight because he can't play on Sunday, so those would be 2 definites. Beyond that, I think you have some real questions, and we were talking about this on the radio yesterday, Andy Bunker and I. I think you got to think about at least not starting, if not completely excluding Joseph Martinez tonight, for a couple reasons. Brandon Vasquez has been your Open Cup hero. He's been very, very good as the striker in Open Cup. I think he can give you enough to get by St. Louis tonight. But I also think you have to be a little bit concerned about Joseph now, kind of rounding his way back into full fitness after Copa America. And I do understand he didn't play a whole lot down in Brazil, but he did have a lot of travel. I think you need Joseph at 1,000% for Sunday. So if I were Frank, I would have maybe Joseph in the 18 at the most tonight, but I'm starting Brandon Vasquez. Beyond that, boy, you're looking at a back line with no Pogba. That really hurts you. So I think now you have to go LGP and Miles as your center backs. I think you have to do that. I think you can go Ambrose and maybe Shea as your wing backs. I know how valuable Escobar is. I think, again, let's look at the reality, not to slander or degrade St. Louis at all, but you're playing a USL championship team tonight. I think you can get by with giving Franco Escobar a night off. Your midfield, like I said, Heinemann is definitely going to play. I think you can play Lorenowitz. You can play Lorenowitz at center back too. I guess, that's a possibility. Nagbe put in such hard work on Sunday that I would worry about bringing him back on Wednesday. So if you're going 4-3-3, oh boy, let's say Shea, Miles, LGP, and Lorenowitz. No, you can't do that. Ambrose. That would be your line of 4 across the back. Heinemann, Lorenowitz in the midfield, and maybe Remedi, with Heinemann kind of playing the 6. And then up top, I think you go Vasquez. I worry about Julian Gressel. I think he's put in a lot of work, so maybe Pereira and Miram. That's what I would do tonight. Maybe you have Pitti in your 18. Maybe you have Joseph in your 18 with the intent that you're going to try not to play them. It stinks about Pogba's injury because I think this would be a match where he would play at center back for sure. So that's what I've got, just kind of spitballing it with you. And by the way, I don't think it would hurt for Pitti to have a night off either.
What about Andrew Carlton in a situation like
Carlton, this? Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point, John. You could slot Carlton in. You could, really in a bunch of different spots there. I think he's certainly in the team tonight. I don't think there's much doubt about that. The thing with the passport happened after the Columbus match, right? So Carlton has been in the team a couple times with the first team, but he has not played yet. So I don't know if any kind of punishment is still occurring with him or not. But yeah, absolutely, Carlton would be in that mix. I would also, the goalkeeper would be interesting. I don't know if you play Brad tonight or if you give him a night off and go with Can. Because you did play Brad in Columbus, didn't you? If I'm remembering correctly. It hasn't been Can exclusively in Open Cup, so that would be a decision too.
I think the idea, seeing Alec Can in the lineup on Friday for the twos in the 11 minutes that was actually played, I think the idea was to get him ready for Open Cup. So I would expect him to be in the lineup tonight. Let's talk bigger picture. Let's talk priorities at this stage of the season because we're over the halfway mark. You're in the quarterfinals of the Open Cup. What are the goals for Atlanta United this season? Beyond, obviously defending MLS Cup championship, but what are the tangible goals you're trying to accomplish through the rest of the regular season?
Well, and I kind of know where you're going with this, Jason, because you have a chance to win 3 trophies still. And the U.S. Open Cup is one of those trophies, and you're 3 wins away from doing it, and you're looking at the good possibility of being in the semifinals if you can take care of a USL team tonight. I still think MLS Cup is realistic for this team, or at least going to the final, because you're in a position in the East where you control your own destiny. You're going to play Philadelphia again. You're going to play DC again, the 2 teams above you. You're 6 points behind Philly, but with 2 matches in hand. You control your own destiny there. The team that scares you the most behind Atlanta United is New York City. You play them twice. So Atlanta United is still in full control of getting home field throughout the Eastern Conference playoff and potentially having a first-round bye. That's a tangible goal. I think that needs to be a goal for this club right now. I would not give up on that yet just because you've wobbled a little bit since the international break. You do have incredibly tough matches coming up. Atlanta United's schedule going forward is really ridiculous until you get to the very, very end. So, I don't want to sell people a bill of goods and say it's like a certainty that Atlanta United is going to finish at the top of the Eastern Conference table, but I think that's still a realistic goal. Supporter Shield, I think, is not a realistic goal right now. And LAFC is just having one of those seasons that is strangely becoming common now over the last 3 years in MLS, but it really is historic. You're not going to win Supporter Shield, but you can win the East. And if you win the East, you go to CONCACAF Champions League, and you're hosting playoff games all the way to the MLS Cup final. That's not a bad spot to be in by any stretch. If you can win the U.S. Open Cup, that's great. Campione's Cup comes at a point in the schedule where if you're still going an Open Cup, then it becomes a question as to whether or not you treat that as a friendly or if you go for that trophy. And we'll find out this weekend who the opponent will be. But I think there's still a lot of really big accomplishments that are realistic for this club this year. They're not as good as they were last year, but they're still pretty darn good. And, winning the East in the regular season, hosting all the way through the Cup final, going to the CONCACAF Champions League because you've won the East, I think that's extremely doable. Extremely doable. And I think that needs to be a goal of this club.
Jason ran the numbers, and I think that on the show yesterday said that right now Frank de Boer has the same record that Tata Martino had in his first season with Atlanta United. And I think
19
that
games in, it's 9-7-3, the exact same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I think that gets lost on folks who are trying to sit there and have this wish list of things and expecting things to be the same after a coaching change, where Frank de Boer has said it was going to take 6 months, and then it took 6 months, and then you win 10 of 13. And I think that there are some of the facts and evidence, I think, get lost sometimes when you're discussing where things stand right now. And, Mike, I'm glad you brought up matches in hand to make up the difference in points if you win those, obviously. But there are some facts and evidence, I think, that get lost here when we're discussing what's going on right now.
I agree, John. I think the thing that really drives you nuts, and this would be fair to say, is you're 3 kicks away from being 10-5-5 and being on 35 points and 1 point out of first with 2 matches in hand. You're literally 3 kicks away from that happening. You drop 4 points on the last kick of the match. That kills you. That is something that happened to this team last year, dropping points on the last play of the match. In fact, I went back and counted goals given up after the 85th minute to, drop points. I think it's happened 7 times now over the last 2 years. That's soccer. It's only happened 1 time to the good in the last 2 years, and that was in San Jose last year. That's frustrating. But that's what I think kind of sticks with me a little bit is this team is very, very close to having one of those special types of seasons that we saw last year. They just have not closed matches out very well. One thing that, the alarmists are pointing out that I don't necessarily disagree with is you've not had very good match control since the international break. That's fair. Certainly the last 2 matches you've played, you've not had good match control. But I feel like we have very short memories as fans. And if you can turn around and get something positive in a difficult road match against Seattle, who has been unbelievably good at home this year and unbelievably bad on the road. Seattle hasn't lost at home this year. If you can get some kind of result there, come back, beat Houston midweek, and then get a win over DC, 7 out of the potential 9 points, I think we're having a totally different discussion about this club then. If you take the broader view, let's remember this team is 10-4-1 over their last 15 competitions. That's really, really good. Unfortunately, the 4 losses and the draw have happened more recently than most of those wins. But, to your point, John, about Tata and Frank having the same record at this stage, it's a little bit different in 2017 because you were an expansion team then. But in many ways, this feels like kind of a new team itself because you do have a new coach and you lost Miguel Almiron and you've still tried to fit Pity Martinez into this. And Pity has not given you exactly what you had hoped for at this point. Doesn't mean he hasn't been bad. It's just it hasn't been to the level that we had all hoped. And even with all that adversity and with the injury to Barco and the injury to Villalba and the injury to George Bello, which I think we've completely forgotten about, and the time that you missed with Franco Escobar, I mean, again, if I were to list all the things that this team has had to go through in the first half of the season and tell you in February, that's what's going to happen, and Atlanta United's going to be third in the East, controlling their own destiny going into July, I think you'd probably take that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think you would.
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be an interesting second half with all of the stuff going on. I mean, Open Cup, balancing that at the stage is something new for the club. They haven't been this deep into the tournament. And when you get this close, I think you do go for the trophy, but you have to balance it. You have to balance it with a trip this weekend to Seattle. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch it. It's a good thing they're not in the League's Cup this year because those games are about to kick off to add more complication. We'll see how that goes down the road. I want to ask you about a couple big picture things that are starting to pop up. David Tepper up in Charlotte is meeting with Major League Soccer. We could have expansion cities, the next two, announced by the end of the month. And David Tepper and his executives, and this is a quote from an article in the Charlotte Observer, Tepper and his executives have asserted that an MLS team in Charlotte would draw from 40 to 60,000 a night. What do you think?
I don't agree with that. I do think they can draw 30,000 consistently. You know, if Tepper follows the same blueprint that Arthur Blank has followed, and he brings in smart people to run the club, and he makes a pretty clear statement early that they're going to be treated on the same level as the Carolina Panthers, that might help a little.
I think he has in that regard already.
Yeah.
Tom Glick, the president of the Panthers, is a former pro soccer exec. So, I mean, he knows it inside and out, and it is really similar to what Arthur Blank did with originally in the Falcons organization, bringing in Jim Smith from the Columbus Crew.
Yeah. I mean, 40 to 60,000 a night in a market that size feels very, very ambitious. I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong on that. Charlotte's interesting because you've got a really big, robust pocket of soccer fans and soccer players in the Research Triangle area up in Raleigh-Durham. But that is a brutal drive to get from Raleigh down to Charlotte on a weeknight or even a Saturday morning. You've got a really, really hot soccer area on that 85 corridor in Greenville-Spartanburg where, you know, you have some very robust college programs, and Greenville has done very well, you know, with their club team. But that's kind of a big drive, too. And I don't know, like, Charlotte, I'd have to start looking up, like, metro populations and do demographic studies and things like that. I mean, I think Atlanta's working really well right now because you're in a big market with a lot of young people. Charlotte is not as big a market, and I don't know if they have as many young people. So to just assume that it's going to work on the same level of Atlanta, that might be a little ambitious. But if they really think they can do that, let them in. That would be great for MLS. And they want to play at Bank of America Stadium. It sounds like if David Tepper is saying those kinds of things, they have no interest in tarping the upper deck. That's good, too. You'll have the potential for some really good regional rivalries with Atlanta and with Nashville and potentially with D.C. It fills a geographic hole. From a travel standpoint, you've got a hub airport there, so it's going to be easy for most of the clubs to fly in for road matches. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. I have no doubt that David Tepper, he made his money not by taking risky investments and not by doing things by the seat of his pants. And I don't think David Tepper would be looking at this as some kind of charity. I mean, I think he wants to make money. So he's a smart guy, and if he put smart people in charge, I guess it could work. Boy, I mean, if they're averaging 50,000 a night, I'll come back and eat my hat in a couple of years because that feels very, very ambitious. But I hope he's right because it would be great for the league.
A couple of things from the article over at the Charlotte Observer. They're not really it's not that they won't wait, but I think they don't want to wait until that 30th team comes in. Like, they want to go now. They're ready to jump the line and do whatever it takes. And they would call the team Carolina, not Charlotte.
Yeah,
they would draw from the regional side of it,
and that's what they should do. And again, like you've got a lot of people from Raleigh all the way south to Greenville, Spartanburg, who play soccer. Some really good collegiate programs there. I mean, I think it would work. And the league has shown that they are willing to jump teams in line if they feel like the infrastructure is there and they're ready to go. We saw that with Cincinnati. Cincinnati jumped over Nashville because the league felt they were ready to go. So we'll see. It's very, very interesting. It would create an instant rivalry, and really it helps Atlanta. It gets Atlanta United off that island a little bit where, your closest road match is Orlando. Now you're talking about in the span of a year or two, you could have drivable road matches to Charlotte and Nashville. And that would be awesome for Atlanta United fans and for the club itself.
Yeah, that would be very cool. And as we finish up, now that the Women's World Cup is done and the players are going through the streets of New York City right now celebrating, just what are your final thoughts on this tournament and how big it was?
Well, I mean, it's been enormous. I think it's been great to see how much the tournament has gained traction in Europe and South America. The TV numbers prove it. We knew about the numbers in Europe. I read this morning about the numbers it was getting in Brazil. So encouraging. I really thought this was the best Women's World Cup ever. It's like I tweeted on Sunday. I think we're at the point now where we can say pretty reasonably that 6 to 10 teams can win this now. And the rest of the world is catching up to the USA, but the USA is still superior. And I like the fact after, hanging so many goals on Thailand and putting that bullseye on their back that the U.S. women's national team saw out this tournament like the champions that they are. And they embraced that villain role, and they went out and they got the job done. I'm enormously proud of this group. And I think you have to give credit to Jill Ellis a little bit. She's won back-to-back World Cups. I think a lot of what we perceive to be, potential weaknesses with this U.S. women's national team turn out to be just fine. Alyssa Nair being one of them, the goalkeeper, and Jill Ellis. I mean, she did not push a button that proved to hurt this team. So it's a great moment for soccer in America, not just women's soccer. I hope this helps NWSL the rest of the way. Their newfound TV deal with ESPN is a big plus. And let's see where we are a couple years from now, because 2015 was a good push forward. This will be a good push forward in 2019. The Olympics next year, hopefully, those matches are in good time slots where there will be a large American TV audience. And then we'll see where we are as we go into 2021 and beyond with the NWSL and potentially maybe something happening here in Atlanta down the road.
Yeah, the legacy of this, it could go a lot of different directions, and I really hope that now that the tournament is over, we start to take those steps in the soccer community and across the country about this was great. Now, how do we continue this progress? Because this feels like a jump start to what could be, but people have to grab onto that and push it forward.
Yeah, and it takes a little bit of a leap of faith. And I think what happens in NWSL with attendance and TV audience over the next few weeks is going to be very, very important. Can they show that this post-World Cup surge in interest is sustainable? Because I think a lot of people are watching right now. And there are a lot of people who are ready to dip their toe into the water and make that league bigger and get the league into markets that can support it. But there's going to be some hesitation if what happened over the last month in France does not translate into more success at the gate and in TV ratings for NWSL. So if you're in an NWSL market listening to us, go to a game, please. I think it's very, very important because I think the three of us are pretty big believers that NWSL can work and work very well here in Atlanta. But there needs to be a little bit more proof and a little bit more to back up that theory with NWSL getting the support that it deserves elsewhere around the country.
Yeah, and if you're an NWSL team, get out there and meet folks and bring them out to your games. Don't just sit back and wait for them to show up. That's the next step here. I think that'll kick it on to a whole nother level. Well, Mike, we won't be on the call for the game tonight. We are going to get you on the SDH pregame show. We're going to start that at 6 o'clock from Fifth Third Bank Stadium as we have a lineup and we can start to talk about what we're expecting with it. But we'll be back on the radio on Sunday. What's all of our timing for Sunday in Seattle?
Sunday's weird. The kickoff is 3:55 Atlanta time. So we're going to go on at 3:15 on Sunday on 92.9 The Game with the Five Stripes Countdown. And don't forget, 2 o'clock this afternoon, we'll have stoppage time on the 92.9 The Game Facebook page.
Yes, all the things coming up.
Excellent plug.
Yes, nicely done. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys, take care.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to have Doug Robertson from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution join us right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back, Soccer Down here, July 10th edition. It is a Wall Pass Wednesday match day, U.S. Open Cup tonight in Kennesaw. And on every match day edition of SDH, we have Doug Robertson from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution join us. What's up, Doug?
How are y'all?
Doing well. It's been an interesting week. Sunday was absolute, utter chaos, and then more chaos from the Argentine tabloid media. And then we have an Open Cup match tonight. It feels like it's been a very eventful last few days.
Yeah, it has, and I much prefer these than when there's nothing going on. So this makes the time go by much faster, and it's much more engaging. And it's good for page views.
Yes. So have you had time to kind of sort of ingest and digest what happened after Red Bulls? I know a lot of folks are definitely looking at it as 2 points lost instead of a point gained in a schedule compression. But what are some of your, now that you've had a couple days to kind of be away from it, has anything else popped into your head about what happened over the weekend?
No, it was 2 points lost. I mean, it was a home game. So anytime you don't get all 3 points, it's whatever points lost. And it's just the defense. It's a problem that's been going on, again, since before DeBoer, even under Tata. The defense just has moments where it just switches off. And I don't know why, because some of the cast of characters has changed within the defense, but it continues to happen. And, I mean, that last goal was scored by Red Bulls. It was a perfect pass, but you just can't allow that kind of thing to happen if you're Atlanta United. And I still haven't been able to watch a full width video because I really like to see what the different assignments may have supposed to have been on that play. But Atlanta United has got to cut that stuff out if it wants to repeat as MLS Cup champs. And based upon the past 4 games, it's really just not looking likely at this point.
So I asked Mike this in the last segment. Let me ask you now that we're into the second half of the season. You're into the quarterfinals of the Open Cup. I mean, obviously the primary goal is to repeat as MLS Cup champions, but what are the upcoming priorities for you? I mean, how important is the U.S. Open Cup? I think the Campeones Cup is a little bit to be determined based off Open Cup and what that match ends up looking like. But what's a realistic goal as you finish the season in terms of placement in the Eastern Conference for you?
Well, the Campeones Cup to me is just some sort of made-up thing that doesn't really carry a lot of weight to me. Atlanta United, I assume, will think much differently because it is a trophy and it is, something that validates the work done. And I get that and understand that. Repeating as MLS Cup champ is obviously goal number 1. Winning the U.S. Open Cup, though, does come with a slot in next year's Champions League, I believe. And all Atlanta United has to do is win 3 more games. Is that right? Quarters, semis, finals?
Correct.
Yeah. And they're back in the Champions League next year. And I'm sure they want that because they can't be satisfied with what happened earlier this year, and they could be able to get a little closer to a level playing ground depending upon what happens with the new CBA going into next year. So it's going to be much easier just to win 3 games as opposed to having to win however many they need to win to secure a playoff spot and then home field and then get through the playoffs and the MLS Cup. So I think the U.S. Open Cup might have more priority right now than anything. I do think Atlanta United will make the playoffs simply because Columbus is horrid. Cincinnati is horrid. Chicago, despite thumping Atlanta United 5-1, is still just not very good in its overall body of work. So simply by elimination, combined with Atlanta United's quality, it's going to make the playoffs. But for right now, the focus should be on the Open Cup, in my opinion.
Let's get into without dropping your whole starting 11 because we want folks to go and click and read your starting 11. So let me just get into a couple of different names and find out what you think about these particular individuals. Tonight specifically, let me start with just 2. Emerson Hyndman, Andrew Carleton.
Yeah, well, we know Hyndman is starting because Frank was gracious enough to give us one, as he likes to say yesterday. That surprised me a little bit. Usually they like players who are coming back from injury, which Hyndman, I guess, is a parallel to play with the 2s just to kind of get their legs under him. Hyndman hasn't started the game since December of last year. I think he'll come in for Nagbe. I guess he could come in the role that Pitti tried to play against Red Bulls as a 10, but I think it's more likely he's going to come in for Nagbe. Really curious to see what he's going to have. I know St. Louis is probably going to try to knock him around a little bit. But he said that, he learned playing in Scotland, which is a very physical league, not to back down from challenges and how to handle it. So that's going to be fun to watch tonight. Andrew Carleton, I think will start simply because Atlanta United has no more midfielders that I think they should use. With Seattle on Sunday, Houston on Wednesday, and D.C., whatever it is, next Saturday or next Sunday. Those are important games with points. And so they have to strike a balance. I know I said the U.S. Open Cup is more important, but they do have to strike a balance. They can't just continue to drop points in the race for the playoffs. So I think Carleton will start tonight with some other midfielders either getting a rest or simply unable to go because of injuries.
How important is it for you to find that proper balance when you look ahead at an Open Cup quarterfinal tonight, where you're going to move into a semifinal against either Orlando or New York City if you advance, then a trip to Seattle cross country and a quick flight back because you get Houston next week in D.C. I mean, if you had to kind of rank those games in terms of a lineup priority, what direction would you go?
Taking into account the quality of the competition?
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, DC first then. You got to get 3 points in the East. Then probably Houston, because it's a home game, Seattle, and then St. Louis. You don't want to lose, but there's a lot of MLS teams that have gone east to west and lost, particularly against a Seattle team that's going to have Morris back. They'll have Roldan back. They'll have the other midfielder whose name I'm forgetting right now back from Copa America duty. That's how I would rank them.
All right. Well, I guess we lost John. There he is.
It's amazing what happens when people try to invade in the middle of a conversation. Let me ask you, Doug, about Justin Meram and what he has meant to this team since he has walked in the door. I know that he has instantly become a fan favorite, and we're seeing the Meram from a couple of seasons ago. What has it been like for you to see someone like that step in immediately, have the relationships that he's had with Brandon Vasquez on the Open Cup side, and then doing with the MLS matches as well? What's it been like for you to see Meram hop in place and immediately assimilate himself the way that he has?
Yeah, it's been fascinating. I mean, I wonder how many other teams had tried to trade for Meram or simply wouldn't, based upon what happened with him at Orlando and then on his return to Columbus, and if they're kicking themselves now, because he's been fantastic for Atlanta United. He created the most chances against Red Bulls. He had a great kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, rapport with the fullbacks in terms of like 1-2 touches and getting himself into space. He's just been a phenomenal player for Atlanta United. I can't think of a game that he's been in so far in which he hasn't made an impact, either as a reserve or as a starter. And you can't ask much more for that, especially considering, he didn't cost Atlanta United that much, and Columbus is still paying most of his salary. It's just been a phenomenal get by Darren Ills and Carlos Bocanegra.
So the get of Justin Meram in the last window, you get Emerson Hyndman here. You will get George Campbell to start next season, signed to a homegrown deal that takes effect starting 2020. Do you think the gets are done in the summer transfer window that's now open?
No, I don't think so. And let's not get ahead of ourselves on Campbell. Atlanta United has yet to produce a homegrown that is become a consistent starter. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse with those guys yet. I think some of them will, but they're all just young and still developing. I think Atlanta United has got to be looking for a fullback, someone that can play either right or left right now. You can't keep rolling out Franco Escobar game after game. He does have a history of injuries, and Michael Parkhurst, the past 2 times he's played fullback, and I love Parkhurst as a center back. I still think he's one of the best in the league. Just has shown fullback is a different animal for him. The tackling that needs to be made, he hasn't succeeded with very well. So I think they're going to try to get a fullback, or they should try to get a fullback. I've heard one name, but I don't want to share it because I haven't been able to confirm it, and I don't want to do a TYC sports report type thing. But I do think that they're going to try to get a fullback.
How crazy do you think this window is going to be on the whole, not just for Atlanta United, but across the league, knowing that everyone is chasing after an LAFC and everyone wants to get as many points as humanly possible, stay above the playoff bar, all that kind of stuff, and make it to the postseason? How crazy do you anticipate this window getting?
Well, I thought it would be pretty crazy, but you look around and there really hasn't been any kind of splashy names like last season with Zlatan and Rooney and those guys associated with any of the teams that I've seen yet. Yamil Assad is out there. And I was on Jason Davis's show yesterday, and I said the biggest problem with trying to sign Yamil Assad is I think he has an inflated sense of wage. And that was, he didn't come back to Atlanta United because of that. I think that's probably what happened with DC United. So I think that's why he's not going to come back. Atlanta United won't get him again. I don't know if they need him, number one. And number two, I think he wants too much money based upon his history. But I think he would probably be the most recognizable name that will end up in Major League Soccer. I just don't know with who.
Yeah, he's been such an interesting case because he's delivered, but I agree, maybe not to the amount that he is expecting to get paid. And for whatever reason, Vela Sarsfield just kept turning down offers from DC United because it seemed like DC was okay on numbers with Assad. By the end of it, they just couldn't get the deal done with Vela Sarsfield, who wanted, I guess, money up front. And now he's just available on a free. So I'm with you. I think he does end up in MLS, and I think maybe that's with DC, but the Luciano Acosta situation makes it a little tricky. But there's also the possibility with him being on a free that he ends up somewhere else. He's just got to decide where he wants to go and how much money he's willing to take.
Yeah, a name that pops up a team that pops up to me that I think would be a good fit for Assad would be Houston, because it looks like they're going to look at a player in the window.
Yep.
But we'll see. I know if I was saying yesterday, if I were New England, if I were Cincinnati, if I were Colorado,
Minnesota's the other one that I come back to because they've mentioned looking for a winger.
Yeah, if I were Minnesota, I would definitely be trying to get Assad because he can play either side. He's going to work on defense, and he's just a good guy. I mean, he personally is a good guy, which makes the whole wage thing just really kind of fascinating to me. So we'll see. I think he'll end up in Major League Soccer. I just don't know with who.
Yeah, it feels like it's going to ramp up to a pretty big, crazy conclusion to the transfer window, but we'll get there in a few weeks. Let's talk about tonight. Let's give some predictions for tonight in the Bailey Daily poll and in our Copa Especial. This is a tricky one because you don't know what Atlanta's going to field. Open Cup games can be weird anyway. St. Louis is a team that has been bad in league play lately, but they've stood up in these big moments in the Open Cup. It's a really tough one to predict. John already had a prediction yesterday because I'm sure it's 2-1.
Yeah, I think that Sam Fink is going to get one off a set piece, but I think that Atlanta United is going to have a comfortable 2-1 win.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know why I ask you anymore. I should just go ahead and have that recorded and just play it and insert names. It'll be 2-1, and then you hear somebody completely different. Sam Fink. That's basically where we're at with John's predictions. Doug, what do you think about tonight?
2-0 Atlanta United.
See, you can do the same thing for Doug because Doug says 2-0 all the time.
No, he doesn't. No, Doug goes out on some limbs. Doug picked the Red Bulls to win on Sunday. You picked Atlanta to win. Somebody else had a draw. That'd be me.
True.
I didn't go 3-3 though, because I didn't expect that chaos. Tonight, it's the Open Cup, and I always just worry about these kind of games because of how weird they can be. St. Louis being banged up definitely helps Atlanta. That they are going to be limited in what they can do, but I do think they come out and pack the defense, try to play on the counter where they can, try to hit Hilton and Cicerone out breaking, or just bomb it up long to Albert Dikwa, Kyle Gregg, Caleb Calvert. They've got a lot of big forwards that they can throw out. That'll be difficult matchup-wise at times, and I do think they find a goal because Atlanta has struggled to have that consistency. But I think ultimately Atlanta gets the 3-1 win and takes care of business in a pretty decent way. I think it's a late goal to make it 3-1 and seal it. my hero for the match tonight, I mean, it's got to be Brandon Vasquez, doesn't it?
Yes.
He has been the Open Cup hero for Atlanta United.
Open Cup hero Brandon Vasquez.
Doug, you've got your starting 11 predicted over at the HAC. What else do you have between now and tomorrow?
My hero is Jason Longshore.
Well,
for tonight.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
He's not in the 18, though.
No, I'm not in the 18.
Well, you don't know that for a fact. Atlanta
No, I
does
do.
have
No, I do. I know I'm not in the 18. Nobody
I was going to
wants
say
to
he's
see
doing
that.
a pregame show with me at 6. That's going to be a big Superman cape grab.
I saw a report from Uzbekistan that Jason Longshore was being signed by Atlanta United.
Yeah,
it wasn't
I can
sourced
play for 3 minutes in a holding midfield role and give you that, and that's about all I got.
Okay, well, I'm working to confirm the report, so I'll let you know if I hear anything.
Uzbek media.
Huge soccer market in Uzbekistan.
It is.
No, I'll have all the usual stuff tonight. Player ratings. I won't have I may or may not have a podcast. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. Game story as soon as the whistle blows. Update the game story. Probably have a sidebar on Heinemann and how he did in his first game, and then sidebars from anything else of importance tonight. And then I'm flying to Seattle on Friday with my wife and one of my sons. So one of our interns is going to be there on Friday talking to Frank and the guys to preview the Seattle game.
Very cool. You can jump on our Soccer Down Here pre- or post-game show if you would like tonight. We'll be in Suite 9 broadcasting since the press box is supposed to be full, which is good.
All right. I'll find you.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
Hi.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Let's take a quick break, come back, get back into the Twitter timeline, and wrap everything up on a Wall Pass Wednesday. And also, we have a giveaway of tickets for tonight. If you were thinking about going, we've got a chance for you to win some tickets. We'll tell you how after the break.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Final segment. Soccer Down Here. July 10th. U.S. Open Cup quarterfinal match day, Atlanta and St. Louis. In the modern era of the Open Cup, no Georgia team has gotten past the quarterfinal stage. In the earlier days of the Open Cup, there could have been one in the 80s that got to the quarters or semis of the Open Cup, but it was very different then because you didn't have the professional teams involved. Data Graphic, who was honored on Sunday, They mostly participated in the National Amateur Cup, but they did enter the Open Cup from time to time. But it was basically the same thing because you didn't have the professional teams involved. So there wasn't as much of a difference between the two tournaments. It was just two different trophies you were playing for. I'll have to go back and see if I can find anything. There could have been a regional champion that went to a Final Four at some point, but the tournament was structured so different, it's really hard to compare. Since 95, when professional teams came into the Open Cup, the year before MLS, when the A-League entered, this is the furthest a Georgia team has been. The Atlanta Silverbacks got here in 2014. They lost at home at Silverbacks Park to the Chicago Fire at this round. Atlanta United hasn't been to this round yet. It feels like it's ready-made for them to move on to an Open Cup semifinal, but they have to take care of business against a team that is playing the biggest game of their season. And for a lot of players in the Open Cup from lower division teams, this is how they get noticed, is their performances in these types of games. So New Mexico and Minnesota tonight, St. Louis and Atlanta tonight. You got a lot of players who are playing for future contracts, and they're going to try to show out. We've got some extra tickets for you if you are interested in going tonight and being part of the supporters section. It's general admission in the supporters section. Thank you to Daniel Price, who had a few extra tickets and wanted to pass them on to fellow SDH listeners. The way you can get these tickets, you have to you have to tweet your prediction at Soccer Down Here. And you have to tell us, if you want these tickets, why you want tickets.
Why?
And you have to go, obviously. We're not going to give tickets to people who are like, oh, well, I might go. I might be able to go. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go.
One, but I'm not going to go.
If you want to go, we have tickets for you in the supporter section, by the way. Don't forget that, in the supporter section. So you got to make noise. You got to jump up and down. You got to chant and scream and dance and all the things.
Vamos, ATL.
Whatever it takes. Make noise. But let us know that you want these tickets and why you should get these tickets. Please tweet at us at Soccer Down Here, and we will pass them along. Make your predictions as well. Let's get back into the Twitter timeline for the rest of the day. What do we have from the peeps?
Eric Schwartz, any chance you could do a quick preview for the Campeón de Campeones Cup this Sunday? Five Stripes obviously have a vested interest in the result. How is that game viewed in Mexico? Cup final, Community Shield, preseason tune-up, Blood Feud, Belk Bowl, NIT, hashtag Wild Pass Wednesday.
Good question. We'll do that Friday. I mean, the sense I get on it is Community Shield, I think, is a pretty good comparison because it's important. I mean, it's not Belk Bowl. It's not nothing, but it's not a league final either. So Community Shield's a pretty good comparison for it. The Campeones Cup, look, I think it can be something. I think they're going to have to make some decisions with the League Cup and Campeones Cup. I don't know if you need both. The League's Cup with the U.S. and Mexico club teams. I don't know if you need both. Maybe you do. Maybe you need to put Campeones Cup in a different part of the calendar if you do. I don't know how all that shakes out. It's going to take some time for the Campeones Cup to mean something because right now it's the second year of it. And you're going to have to figure out the calendar situation because if Atlanta advances to the Open Cup semis and they're starting to look ahead and they've got the crowded fixture congestion, it's not going to be easy for them to take the Campeones Cup as seriously as I think MLS and Liga MX would like to. So we'll see. I think the Campeones de Campeones Cup match for Mexico this weekend is probably a bigger deal to them than the actual Campeones Cup match because it is kind of that champion of champions type of deal. So Community Shield's a fair comparison.
Hudson at the Mile High 17. I'd love it if on Wednesday games we could wear the retro five-stripe jerseys. Hashtag White Stripe Wednesday. Also, y'all had me heated thinking about that insert expletive here, Sean Payton, on the show yesterday. Hashtag Wild Pass Wednesday.
Yeah, it happens. Man, that guy. I mean, I think over time it would be kind of cool. Like once you get a little bit further down the road, the retro five-stripe kit compared to the current stripes kit it's not that big of a difference. So I don't know if you're going to go there, but down the road, if you can do a retro Open Cup kit, that's kind of cool.
Concrete and cherry pie.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe further down the road, the peach makes a return in this type of thing. It just takes time to build that history to have the throwback kits. And I love throwbacks. I love the whole idea of it when you can honor the history of the team, but you got to build that history first.
Tafka, thrilled, in all capital letters, to see George Campbell get a homegrown contract, hoping he can be on a similar development track as Robinson with Parkey and Larry likely hanging him up soon. He was the logical signing.
Yeah, he was. I didn't think he was last year. We saw Kendall Edwards get a lot of time and figured that he would be the next one. Injuries kind of slowed him down a little bit, and Campbell took just full advantage of every opportunity that was handed his way. Campbell was originally going to get some time late last season in USL, but he had an injury, so he didn't get that. And opening this season, it's been Campbell who has impressed Stephen Glass, impressed Tony Annan, and ultimately impressed Frank DeBoer to get the time that he's been getting. He's been a consistent player for Atlanta United too. What I'm curious to see is, you've signed the deal and it will start in January. I don't know if that deal would preclude him from going to Maryland for a semester to play. I guess it could, but if his contract technically doesn't start till January 1st, maybe there's a way around it. I don't know. It really depends on what you want to do with him. He would get a bunch of games in a short period of time in a very professional type of organization, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for him to experience. Knowing that he's then going to go pro on January 1. I'll be curious to see how this stuff gets handled over time. I think there is, for some players, a benefit to playing in college. Campbell, if he's going to get consistent time with Atlanta United too, it's a different conversation. But if they wanted to take that opportunity, okay, we know Campbell's good. We know we're going to play him. We know he's going to be in the mix next year on an MLS deal, a homegrown deal. Do we maybe want to play Kendall Edwards the rest of the season? Do we want to play somebody else the rest of the season and get that time? And let George go and play at Maryland, which will probably be competing for a College Cup championship. Those things get interesting down the road, so we'll see how all this gets handled. I think there's opportunities with MLS and the NCAA to figure some of this stuff out to benefit the athletes, the most important part of it.
The Colonel, morning Colonel. Colonel attended 2 matches in Chicagoland last week with and without VAR. Anecdotally, it's more fun to watch without. By striving for perfection, VAR detracts, but is the future and still more fun than hitting my thumb with a hammer. See you tonight. No VAR, #Wall Pass Wednesday.
I think soon, and I don't know when, the anger about VAR detracting from a game will go away. But it takes time for VAR to be implemented correctly, and it takes time for everybody to get comfortable with its implementation. It's the same stuff that the NFL dealt with, where they had replay come in, and they all freaked out, and they actually got rid of it, then they brought it back, and then they've tweaked it. And now, it's just kind of part of the deal. I don't really hear anybody say, we don't want instant replay anymore. Even with the issues with it in baseball, you don't hear many people say, just get rid of it. Just get rid of it completely. Basketball, it's just part of the deal. So I think it'll get there. It's new. It's still not as smooth as it should be. And it widely varies depending on who's actually doing it and what their experience level is. It's gotten a lot better in Major League Soccer. And I don't really have many issues with its implementation in league play now. I don't. I think it generally works out pretty well. Even the situation with Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez last week was really weird and different. I think it was somewhat because of the laws of the game change and the trickiness of that. But it went okay. And it's generally been okay. I think the issues with VAR so many times are not actually VAR specific. They are laws of the game specific, or just the referees that are using it.
Nick Hinckley has an early prediction. And he says it's 3-1 Atlanta. My dad has been wanting to watch a match in the supporters section.
Oh, wow. Nick Hinkley. Be looking out for a direct message, sir. Very cool.
And we have other discussions having to do with soccer over their topics and things like that. But other than that, sir, we are caught up.
Rob Usry with the prediction of the day. Haven't seen a forecast for tonight, but am expecting at least 4 weather delays. It seems to inevitably happen during the U.S. Open Cup. It also seems to inevitably happen anytime we are in Kennesaw, Georgia.
Yes. Hashtag microclimate.
Yes, and there are some early predictions of potential storms. Just saying.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah. If we get storms, we might have a lightning delay show on the SDH app and such, so be ready for that chaos. If you want to listen tonight, the easiest way is to download the app over at the App Store of your choosing, Android, iOS, both available. You can also listen on the Spreaker app. You can also listen at soccerdownhere.net live. We'll be live a little bit before 6 o'clock to get you ready for the match tonight, and we'll be ready right after the match to wrap everything up. It'll be just like we've done for all the other Open Cup matches so far, except we'll actually be in the venue this time around. And post-game, we might try to grab a bunch of people and make it a round table of complete and utter chaos, and we'll see how we can completely confuse everyone. Jarrett will not be involved, so there will not be crazy background noises. So
He'll still be at the zoo.
In advance. He might still be at the zoo, yes. We lost him. He just disappeared. I don't know if something crazy happened. No clue.
If you hear about something involving large animals confronting a large human being with a child, then that's probably what happened.
It's possible. I think Ivy will take care of everything. She'll be good.
Yeah, my money's on an Ivy board in any fight.
Yes, seriously. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back in a few hours with your U.S. Open Cup pregame show on the SDH Network. Thanks, everybody. Tweet us in why you should get tickets tonight. We've got a couple more for you. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We'll be back in a few hours. Mucho plata, y'all.
Mucho plata.